What's going on? Let's build a collection, friends. I wanted to talk through some collection items by telling a story because I absolutely love telling stories. And I was having this conversation with one of my friends, and I thought this might be a good story to share with some more people. I'm attempting to document my history in video games by choosing one game from every console that we owned as a family or that I had purchased after moving out on my own. It's not going to be one of those what's the best game on every console kind of a video, but more of what's a game that advanced me or made me better or taught me something from every console that I regularly played type of video. I've been playing video games since around 1988. I started on the Atari 2600 one random day, and it's one of my earliest memories. I remember being a sunny, early evening, and my dad pulled out this thing and showed it to me on the TV. It was one of those giant floor console TVs that everybody kept for way too long as a living room table, basically, with a lamp on it. He put in games like Adventure and Kaboom and Fishing Derby on the Atari 2600, and he let me watch as he played it, and I was hooked. You can probably guess the first console was the Atari 2600 for me. What an amazing, wondrous time that was. I can remember playing dozens of games that my dad had. I still had no idea how he acquired them, as by the time I was born, he didn't really play video games. And my mom never played games, to my knowledge. And my older sister didn't play them that I'm aware of either. It was just sitting near the TV, untouched for years, unless my parents played it after I went to bed. The standout game here is such a controversial and embarrassing example. But you have to realize that I was maybe 5 at the time. So it's like 1988 or 1989, somewhere closer to Christmas. KB Toy Stores was at our local mall, and I remember they would pull out of a basket into the main mall area with clearance and low-priced older games. And in here were often Atari games and maybe some NES games, as the NES had been around for a few years by now. But I remember seeing E.T. the Extraterrestrial in this bin. And I had probably just watched the movie for the first time that same year. Probably multiple times, actually. And I guess I had to have it. This would have been a deep clearance price, I'm sure, for like maybe $2 or $5. Or my mom would never have picked that up for me. Of course, I didn't know that she did. And on Christmas morning, I remember opening that puppy up and being so excited to play it. The takeaway advancement that I made with this game was problem solving, because there was no tutorial with this game. I couldn't read, or I couldn't read well when I was 5. So I wasn't reading the manual on how to play this, and my parents weren't helping me play this. I had to figure that out every time. When I moved, my health dropped. Heck, I had to realize that the numbers on the screen even represented my health. And I had to realize that I had to find parts, like in the movie, to call the ship to come pick me up. I was told nothing, and yet I played this game all the time. Needless to say, I thought this was amazing. The world thought this was a terrible game, but I thought this was amazing, and I was getting better each time I played it. Some of my life and professional successes to date, I could probably trace back to the beginnings of playing E.T. on the Atari 2600. Now fast forward to about 1990. That was my first year in kindergarten, and the first year where I made lasting friendships with some folks that I still talk to today. The first year that I was introduced to the NES. Super Mario, Burger Time, Marble Madness, Gauntlet. My best friend Jimmy had this new age console that blew my Atari 2600 away. I wanted to go to his house and play the NES every day. Oddly enough, he wanted to come over to my place and play the Atari too sometimes. I remember thinking, that's so weird that he'd want to come do that. How can you stand those old graphics? Graphics! We were conditioned on graphics in these early years. I had to get better graphics. I had to get the NES. In 1991, my brother and I woke up on Christmas morning to an overflowing Christmas tree. It was always amazing. I will say every single Christmas as a kid I thought was magic. My mom put in a lot of effort for Christmas. And I remember how it looked with the light on all night long, and we'd sneak down to get a glimpse of it before inevitably being asked to get back upstairs and wait till daylight. We opened an NES that year together. We received a number of games with it too. Alongside the bundled Mario and Duck Hunt were games like Burai Fighter and Captain Skyhawk. The latter is the game that really stood out for me. Captain Skyhawk, a flight game. And the graphics, I was totally blown away by them. They were large, polygonal structures, and almost 3D like flight feeling. And I thought the music was amazing. I spent who knows how many hours playing this game. The lesson learned on the NES was community, sharing, and storytelling. It's probably the very reason you're hearing from me right now on this topic. Jimmy also liked this game, and on the bus rides home from school, we'd pull out a notebook and we'd sketch out Captain Skyhawk fan fiction, because to us, Captain Skyhawk didn't really have a story, so we gave him one. We drew out comic-like scenes and then acted them out with our fictitious hero. We even designed our own custom-made fighter jets to see who could jam the most Hawk bombs and Phoenix missiles on it. Community to talk about games and to share them with friends and stories to tell about them. That's what really drew me to gaming at that time. And Captain Skyhawk was amazing for that. When the Super Nintendo came out, Jimmy and I kind of split here. He went the Super Nintendo route, and I still had the NES. I had the NES for probably 3 more years, and maybe into the winter of 1994, I guess. A common theme that you'll find with me is, up until about the PS4 generation, I was usually a console behind, or at best, half a cycle behind. I would regularly go to his house and play the SNES though. For years we would do this, and we kind of let the NES fall by the wayside. Even though I had some really great games for it, and we would definitely pry ourselves away from the SNES to play them, like Crash and the Boys Street Challenge. Now fast forward to that winter time frame of 1994, like I said. I want to say it was probably November, but I'm not 100% sure. My brother and I had saved up our money all summer from helping mow lawns or rake leaves in the fall. And we went to Kmart and we bought the Sega Genesis Model 2, bundled with Sonic the Hedgehog 2. What a leap forward in technology over the NES. What a massive difference from the SNES that I had played for years. Where the SNES felt soft and cartoony, the Genesis felt gritty and more grown up, and I loved it. I truly loved it. I might go so far as to say that the Genesis is my favorite cartridge-based system of all time. I have so many fond memories that I made on it. So what game could possibly have advanced my interest in life or helped me grow more from the Genesis? Mortal Kombat. ABAC-ABB. I remember renting this game against my mother's will and telling her that there's no blood in this game. So what's the first thing I did? I put in that blood code. I learned it from the GamePro magazine, as well as multiple fatalities. And that's all I wanted to see. I wanted to see the blood, and I wanted to see the dismemberment. My 10-year-old brain had never seen anything like it. And my mom wouldn't let us go into the arcades at the mall. They were too dark and too dangerous, as we were told. Maybe they were. I didn't go into them. Or maybe she just knew we'd blow through a roll of quarters and have nothing to show for it in the end. And what did we learn from Mortal Kombat, though? Art and memorization. I gained a massive appreciation for the art from Mortal Kombat. Like, I bought strategy guides. I bought magazines. I taught myself to draw the characters from Mortal Kombat and create collages or scenes well before I even had the game. I forced myself to remember the moves. Down, forward, punch. Back, forward. Down, up. Back, punch. Forward, kick. The moves are ingrained in my memory. And bonus points for you if your brain just played out those moves in your head with the right characters when I said them. You were raised right. Muscle memory was formed almost as quickly as I filled up the walls of my bedroom with fan art from Mortal Kombat and later other video games on the Sega Genesis. I didn't always only play on consoles. Right now, I really enjoy them for their simplicity and the ability to quickly couch co-op with my daughter. But growing up, I also had a PC, and PC gaming was a ton of fun for me. I'd say primarily from 1996 through 2000, I almost exclusively played PC games. There were just so many to choose from, and I acquired them from some of the weirdest ways possible. So during this time, I was about 12 to 16 years old, and I didn't have a lot of money. I was lucky to have any most days. I couldn't drive and just pick up a game. We didn't have the internet till around 1998, and even then I was rocking a 33.6K modem with a single phone line household. There wasn't a lot of downloading going on. I remember the wall-mounted phone being ripped down a few times when someone would pick it up and hear the crackling of the internet and inevitably kick me off. But during this time, what could possibly have struck a chord in my impressionable mind? Duke Nukem 3D. I'd played first-person shooter games before, like Doom and Wolfenstein, and I loved them. But I wasn't allowed to have them. I wasn't really allowed to have any games on the PC, actually. I had a Sega Genesis, and I didn't need more games, my parents would say. But there was this drugstore in town that had a CD spindle near the register that sold shareware games for like 99 cents. I didn't know what shareware was, but Duke Nukem 3D for 99 cents? Yes, please. And I'd take that home and install it, and I played it for years. I beat the same shareware demo level over and over. I felt like I had played the entire game. I created my own challenges. Find all the secrets. Beat the level in X minutes. Take no damage. Whatever the goal I had made up for myself, it helped to keep that experience fresh. So what amazing thing did I learn from this experience? What was so impressionable to my roughly 13-year-old mind? Believe it or not, nudity and swearing. Or more importantly, games marketed specifically for older players. Because up until this point, I never considered games as something for adults. My parents didn't play them, so I hadn't experienced that in my life much. But when you enter that strip club in Duke Nukem 3D, when you first touch down on the rooftop, you know this game's different. It's not Wiz and Liz on the Sega Genesis or Adventure Island 2 on the NES. It's Duke Nukem 3D.
It's time to kick ass and chew bubble gum, and I'm all out of gum.
I'm going to skip over the PlayStation and the N64 entirely. I simply didn't own either system. Jimmy had a PlayStation, and I go over there and we play things like Mortal Kombat Trilogy or Twisted Metal 2 nonstop. Heck, some of the most fun I ever had were on his PlayStation Underground magazines on disc. What an amazing invention that was. A themed magazine with multiple demos of upcoming games that sometimes partnered with the folks from Final Fantasy VII, or Bushido Blade, or Super Puzzle Fighter 2. Good times. But they weren't in my regular gaming collection, so I have to pass for this video. And the same goes for the N64. My brother bought one of these, and he was very adamant that I was not to play it unless he wanted to go toe-to-toe in GoldenEye or Cruisin' USA, which I happily joined in. I did love the system. I just wasn't a big Nintendo fan at the time. I was a PC gamer now, and enjoyed offerings from Sega on my Genesis. And notice how there's no Sega Saturn mention here either. I mean, who owned a Saturn? I wanted a Saturn. I wanted one pretty bad, but I could never swing it in this time, and with its short lifespan, it was just never meant to be. But then the year 2000 came, and who could forget the Y2K bug? Everyone thought the world was going to end, or at least the electronic world. I was pretty confident nothing would happen, but still, something in the back of my mind said, let's be cautious here and prepare for it if it does. And so I shifted back away from PC gaming to consoles, and I purchased the Sega Dreamcast from EB Games. I was 16, I had a job, buy anything I wanted. Gas was like 99 cents then. I could afford to drive to the mall now and browse. This was the first console that I remember used games were a big deal. Sure, I could buy anything I wanted, but who could afford that? I learned to be smarter with my money, and games didn't retain value as well in this time frame. But even with used games, there were still those that you'd read about in GamePro that you couldn't find or couldn't afford because they did hold their value. And with the internet, I learned that the Dreamcast was a very interesting machine and could handle burned games. You didn't even have to do anything too fancy to make it happen. You found the proper file online, you slapped it on a disc. No mod necessary on the console. Put the disc in it, and it runs. The game here for me was Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I burned this game after seeing a crazy price in the store, even when it was used. And I left my slow computer on all night, downloaded it, and played that sucker right after it was freshly burned. That's great, but what did we learn and grow from this experience with the Dreamcast? This was my first introduction to Marvel. You see, in this time, the first Spider-Man movie hadn't really come out yet, and I feel that the first real Marvel film anyone really associated with the brand, but maybe that's me. And I wasn't into comics growing up because they just weren't easily obtained. Coupled with I had parents that had no interest in almost any of the things that I liked growing up, so I never knew about this kind of stuff. But Marvel vs. Capcom had such a wide variety of characters with cool powers, I fell in love with the idea and their unique abilities. The Dreamcast with Marvel vs. Capcom 2 fueled my love of Marvel, which gave way to others like DC. It certainly took me for a ride, and if you know, you know. Now it gets a little foggy. I don't know if 3 or 4 years passed in this time frame where the Dreamcast was my go-to console or not. I know that I graduated high school, I was in college, I picked up a used PS2 from a college friend selling one for whatever new Vice he had at the time. And now we're going to take a step back. The PS2 could play PS1 games and PS2 games. So I'm going to talk about 2 games that made an impression during the PS2 era, but they come from separate generations. The first is Final Fantasy VII. Remember how I didn't have a PlayStation, but I would go to Jimmy's house and we played for hours, including that amazing PlayStation Underground magazine? One of those issues had a demo for Final Fantasy VII. Totally blew me away back then. I was at a yard sale and I found a copy of the original release on Final Fantasy VII on PlayStation for a couple of dollars. Instant buy. Everyone loves this game, but for me, it was my first turn-based game that I actually beat in a reasonable amount of time. And one of the first that I ever played, period. Fun fact though, the first turn-based RPG that I ever played was Buck Rogers' Countdown to Doomsday on the Sega Genesis. Have you ever heard anyone else say that? Ever? For the PS2, I want to talk about X-Men Legends. I noted that I was not super familiar with Marvel Comics before, or superheroes. And I found this also at a yard sale. I just wasn't familiar with it. I was intrigued because I recognized Cyclops, Wolverine, and Nightcrawler on the cover, and I thought, hey, I know them. I couldn't put this game down once I started playing it. I was blown away by how I could create my own team. I was in love with that isometric view because it reminded me kind of like Diablo, which is a franchise that may very well be my favorite of all time. I played it on the PC. The story was amazing. The gameplay was excellent. It really left an impression on me. You'd think I would have played the second one and then on to Ultimate Alliance series, but I did not. I have not played them yet. And I am very excited and I'm waiting to play those hopefully in the near future, as they are part of my collection. This is a generation that turned me on to RPGs properly. It's the generation that solidified superhero interest for me. I played lots of other things. I dabbled in Vice City. I played actual good Star Wars Jedi games with Episode 3. And I sampled the Forbidden Fruit with Manhunt. You gotta try that one. But X-Men Legends is going to be my pick as the game that most shaped me from this generation, along with support from Final Fantasy VII. I had a brief stint with the Wii after graduating college. I thought for sure I was getting hired after a rock star interview performance that I gave. So I went to Walmart and I bought a Wii to celebrate. That was a bad move as I was not hired and now out the money for the Wii. My girlfriend, now wife at the time, was not happy with that decision. I forced myself to like the Wii, even though I hadn't really been with Nintendo since the NES. I played some games and I did enjoy it, like Mario Galaxy, but my favorite was probably Star Wars The Force Unleashed. And I hear you over there telling me that that game was on multiple consoles, and why on earth would you pick it for the Wii? The simple answer is, I felt like a Jedi. The motion controls were new, and this game made me feel like it was implemented somewhat decently for them. It rekindled my love of Star Wars that I started on the PS1 with Masters of the Terrascazi, believe it or not. That's a rough one. And the N64 Shadows of the Empire. Again, shout out to Jimmy, because we couch co-opted a game that was only single player. It was an absolute blast. As well as the Dreamcast with Jedi Power Battles, and the PS2 with Episode 3. Each console had some killer Star Wars games for me, and this was it for the Wii. But again, it was the motion controls, and what I learned from this console is, I don't like motion controls. And I vowed to not get sucked in by that gimmick ever again. I learned that Nintendo is a gimmick company, and probably one of the main reasons why I hadn't really had a Nintendo since the NES. And it was okay. If it was an add-on accessory like the PlayStation Move, motion controls are fine. But it could not be the main draw. On to what I consider the final leap in 3D graphics gaming to date. The largest being the jump from the Genesis to the PlayStation, and the second being the jump from the NES to the Genesis. But the PlayStation 3 brought graphics you wouldn't entirely consider old school today, with stories that could take even bigger chunks of time, with HD quality cutscenes and content thanks to the Blu-ray discs. Things were getting real now, and not because 3D TVs were also making their rounds at the same time. This is a generation where I feel horror gaming could step up and really grip you like never before. And that's exactly where I want to focus. I picked up Fear, First Encounter Assault Recon. I'd never played anything like this one. I was genuinely scared playing this game. I was 23 years old, and I graduated college by this time. I picked up a PS3 for my future brother-in-law when Circuit City shut down, along with some other games for a steal. Fear was a game that I rented, because that was still a thing. I remember playing through the game over a weekend in my first apartment, on my first HD TV that my mom got me when I moved out. A 32-inch Vizio 720p. Man, I was living large. The game pulled me in almost right away from the beginning, and it had jump scares, creepy environments, awesome gunplay. The entire series is actually really good, and while I feel the first is the best, I'd recommend to play through the entire series if you get a chance. When I first played, I don't think I fully appreciated the story. I don't think I fully understood the story. I was hot off shooters like Counter-Strike, so fast-paced shooters with no story was what I was after, and this just slowed it down, literally. Take a different approach. Learn to soak in the environment, even if you didn't want to be there. Horror. That's the takeaway here. Environments, sounds in a horror game are just as, if not more, important than the visuals and the gameplay. Now for a little side trip with the Nintendo DS and the 3DS. I'm going to put them together even if you don't, and in this order. I tried to like the DS or the 3DS 3 or 4 different times. I just couldn't do it. I didn't hate the system. I just felt I'd rather play something else. I was beyond Nintendo. I was an adult playing adult games. So why didn't I ever pick up a Sony PSP or a PlayStation Vita, actually? That's a really good question. I guess I couldn't justify it at the time. That's going to be my answer. But I could find a used DS or 3DS pretty easily. This is one of the last significant jumps for me before having my daughter, and it was great. It was portable because that's kind of how I live my life now. From that moment on, portable. I played Pokemon Moon around 2016. I know I have heard it's not the best in the series, but bear with me. It was the first I played. How did I manage to miss out on Pokemon games until now? We've already established that I loved RPGs. Probably because I was 12 when it first came out, and I didn't have those battery-sucking portables that I arrived on. So why would any self-respecting soon-to-be teenager be involved with a cute pocket monster when there were heads to decapitate? So I played Pokemon Moon and understood what the craze was all about. I'm not going to say this is my favorite game on the 3DS, but it's something I learned from. You see, I tried other games like Kingdom Hearts or various Mario games, Metroid Prime Hunters. I didn't like them as much, even if I liked the franchise a good bit like Mario or Kingdom Hearts. I learned that I did actually like portable gaming, but I really only liked it for turn-based RPGs, and the DS and 3DS has a plethora of good and bad ones. I've not played them all, or even a lot of them, but I did learn that I enjoyed portable gaming if the controls were suited to the screen size and the intensity of the content was low. The PS4. The first console I ever bought on launch day. I remember having it shipped to my work and finding a way that I could leave early to go hook it up. Another coworker had done the same. I remember both of us hooking them up that night and chatting with each other online and exploring the new share feature and taking control of each other's games for moments. I played Knack as the very first PS4 game, and I really enjoyed it. It was graphically blowing me away yet again. I know I keep saying that. The PS4 is, to date, my favorite disc-based console that I've ever purchased. I rekindled a lot of lost love with the PS4. I came back to retro-looking platformers. Explored indie games for the first time. The expansion of PS Plus made it easier to explore and play huge game catalogs that I wouldn't have otherwise purchased and learned about, especially later in the PS4's life. I never thought it would take out physical media though, but I enjoyed it. A few new games every month for free, like Gone Home, or Tales from the Borderlands, or Erica. I wouldn't have played any of these without PS Plus. They caused me to explore a little in my gaming, and they all have a similar style. So when I mention one of my most memorable titles on this console, I might get some crap for it, as it's a game that I don't hear talked about much as I feel it should be. It's a game that pulled on so many of the past generations that I love. Puzzle solving, amazing story, beautiful art, real-world content, and bits of terror. It's Detroit Become Human. This might be a rare case where the game I've chosen is my favorite game for that console. I feel it's an absolute masterpiece. This game pulled me in immediately. The multiple story arcs feel so believable. The emotions that you can feel while playing this, so genuine. And the choices that you make felt extremely impactful. I love seeing my decisions compared to how other people did their decisions in the world. Did I make the popular decision, or did I take a road less traveled? Do yourself a favor and play this game. I almost get shivers talking about it. It is that good. Anyone that has taken my advice to give it a try has not regretted it, and I cannot wait to see what Quantic Dream puts out there in the future. One final detour before the last console. I only call it a detour because this selection is totally not like me, and I loved it. I truly loved my experience with this console. During the PS5 and Xbox Series lineup, it was extremely difficult to get one of these. Scalpers figured out how to employ bots to chew through available inventory and sell for upwards of twice the retail price. I refused to give in to that. I had a kid now, and if this was what gaming was going to turn into, then I was out. I'd stick to what I already had, and PC gaming as well. Which, speaking of, I didn't quit. Games like Diablo 3, World of Warcraft, and others that I purchased from Steam sales littered my digital backlog on PC. So why not try a digital console? How about an Xbox Series S? A console I never thought I'd love, and honestly might be my favorite console of this generation. Its size meant that I could take it with me whenever I was spending a weekend away. The all-digital nature meant that I didn't have to bring discs with me when I did this. It was the first Xbox I had ever owned. Perhaps the first time I touched an Xbox controller since the original Xbox came out, actually. And I came to grips with the inevitable future through Game Pass. I love Game Pass. It's amazing value for the money, especially with the tie-in to PC and Xbox. Digital is coming for us, and all digital world is going to take over gaming. Likely the next generation, if not that one, the following. And I don't love that. Not one bit. But I don't think it's all doom and gloom, because my taste in gaming changed during this time with the Xbox Series S. I played it for about 2 years pretty faithfully while I waited for my chance at PS5. And in this time, I discovered I didn't need specific titles. In fact, I only purchased one game while owning the Xbox Series S. Everything else was on Game Pass. I purchased Hogwarts Legacy and absolutely loved that game. But everything else was Game Pass. I just wanted to escape and play something. Even though that wasn't a big AAA title that had all the marketing. If I was just as happy playing a AA title, so be it. Or even a fun indie title. However, during this time, it was probably Halo that gripped me the most. Can you believe I've never played a single Halo game in any capacity until 2023? Absolutely true. So I set out with the Master Chief Collection to play every single Halo back to back. I played nothing in between these games. I chose an order that seemed appropriate for me. I started with Reach, followed by the first 3, ODST, 4, Guardians, and Infinite. I gave up in Infinite before completing it. I was just burned out on Halo. Was that the right thing to do? I truly don't know. You tell me, was that the right thing to do? I wasn't hating it, but I just don't enjoy open world games much, and that felt like it jumped the shark for me. And from the well-narrated Halos of before, that crafted amazing stories, to a more map completion kind of a game. The final entry is the PlayStation 5. As previously mentioned, this was hard to come by. On day one, I had it in my cart. I was shopping with Best Buy online, late at night. I was logged in, awake. I had it added, trying to check out, and the pages kept freezing over and over again. I tried to check out, but I could not. I felt anger that I was unable to get this on day one. After all, I bought the PS4 on day one. I'm now a day one console person. So I gave up trying to get one that night. And I went to bed thinking, okay, I'll be able to get one the next restock in maybe a week. But that never came. It wasn't until the late spring of 2023 that I could get my hands on one. And by that time, I'd used the Xbox Series S for a solid 2 years, and I was thinking, do I even want a PS5? Well, I won the Sony lottery. My email was chosen to purchase one, so I did. And at the same time, I'd been selected from another lottery-style PS5 sale at retail pricing. It was around this time that I thought stock must be starting to replenish for this to happen. I couldn't find anyone that wanted my spot, and I had no interest in buying 2 of them, so I bought the disc-based PS5 for myself. Throughout the console's generation, I found this to be a very lackluster console, and also lacking in titles. I've played more PS4 titles than PS5. The jump from 4 to 5 was so minimal graphically. The controller felt so similar to me, even though I really like the L2 and the R2 buttons. The load times are amazing, however. I can definitely say that, and the network speeds are certainly better. I do take advantage of the 4K disc reading too, so I have used its capabilities. But I might have been just fine with a PS4 for most of the time here, or complementing it with a Series S perhaps. How terrible is that? Regardless, I do have a standout game this generation that I feel does not get the love it deserves, and along with it, something I've learned. The game is Granblue Fantasy Relink. It's an anime action RPG with a relatively short story for an RPG, but it's fun. Pure fun. You'll end the game thinking, that was the exact amount of time I wanted for this. And then here's the kicker. You're going to play more. Not because they're making you with a drawn-out story, but this is the first time I've ever played a game in what I'll call the end game of a single-player game. A single-player, story-focused game. I wanted to level up my characters, upgrade their stats, and grind for new characters. I did this for maybe a month or two, which sounds like a short amount of time, but for someone who never does it, it was like an eternity. It's so unlike me to do that today with a backlog of games, unless it's a Diablo game or an MMO, where I feel like I have to because I'm paying for it. We learned that it's okay to play a game after you've beaten it. The New Game Plus, or leveling up your characters and grinding a bit more, absolutely okay. If you're enjoying the game, a backlog can wait. You've already got too many games you're never going to get to. The backlog can wait. Just play what's fun. And Granblue Fantasy Relink was absolutely fun. Please do yourself a favor and give it a try. So what's next? I'm not entirely sure. I don't feel any of the players really have consumers' best interest in mind. With odd decisions from Sony to ship without disk drives, or Microsoft's continued focus on Game Pass alone, which, as I said before, I do like, but I don't want physical media to go away. And Nintendo's crazy price increases and awkward digital cartridge games. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I see a general shift toward neutral for my future. A device that can maybe stream all things. Maybe that's an upcoming Xbox handheld or just a handheld PC in general, because that's what it's probably going to be. That's my bet. I'm curious what you think the future will hold for gaming too, and what lessons you might have learned, and how your tastes have evolved over time, whether you've been around for 2 generations or 7. Thanks so much for allowing me to tell these stories, and if you like the content, please like this and be sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot. Take care out there.